Hi, I'm Patti. I'm a jewelry designer here at Fire Mountain Gems and Beads. And today I'm going to take you through making this beautiful Swarovski necklace. Kind of in honor of the Pantone color of the year this year, which is classic blue. Classic blue is an assured blue. It's a comfortable blue. It's something that makes us feel warm and safe. And it's just going to be everywhere this year. So we wanted to just kind of bring in a little bit of that for you. It kind of features the Swarovski Grow pendant, which is just beautiful. It mirrors the inside of a geode. Just gorgeous. Also has some indigo and some blue zircon. The first thing I'm going to do is cut about 20 inches of AccuFlex. So clear-coated stainless steel. I love to use this little spool tamer. This keeps your AccuFlex from going all over the place when you're not using it. You don't have to use tape. It's a really great little thing. And I'll just pull it with my plier. And I'm just going to pull it out till I get to about 20 inches. If you're not great with eyeballing, good to use a ruler because you want to make sure you have enough. And I'm going to go ahead and cut that right here. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and set my AccuFlex aside. Then I'm going to grab a little Grow pendant and one of the larger jump rings here. I'm just going to open up that jump ring. I'll do that by holding half the jump ring in a plier and with my jump ring opener, torquing that open. I want to have a nice big open space to be able to get the pendant on there. And then I'm just going to close it back up the way I opened it. There's a little bit of space there, so I'm just going to grab my bent nose plier here and snug it up. Whenever you close a jump ring, you want them to be touching really nicely, just like that. And I'll set that aside. So now I'm going to take my AccuFlex and I'm going to make one end of the necklace right here. So I'm going to grab a piece of chain and have that at the ready. And I'm going to grab a crimp bead and then thread on 1/2 of an AccuGuard. And then I'm going to put my wire through the other side of the AccuGuard and pull it up firmly. And then thread my crimp bead on the other side of the wire. So now I've got my wire going through both sides of the crimp bead and my AccuGuard all the way at the top, pulled taut. And there's a little space between the crimp bead and the AccuGuard, you'll notice. We want that to be minimal, but we do need a little space there. That leaves a little space if you want to put a crimp cover. In this project, I'm actually not using a crimp cover, so I can go ahead and close that up now. So I'll just use the outer edge of my crimp pliers and close that up. I'm going to pull that bead right up against the AccuGuard since there is no crimp cover. And I'm going to use, for this size of a crimp, the innermost channel here, and I'm going to crimp it nice and tight. You only need to do it once if you do it nice and tight. Then I'm going to flip it sideways to the outer channel, and I'm going to close up that crimp so it kind of folds in on itself. Next, I'm going to take my flush cutters and I'm just going to cut off the tail right at the crimp. And so we have a nice crimped end here, ready to add the chain at the end of the project. Next, I'm going to flip it around and start threading on my pattern. This pattern uses a couple of different sizes of indigo, some blue zircon, more indigo, more blue zircon, and so forth. You can do it however you want to do it. Use your creativity. You're not locked into any design. It's wonderful to do things your own way. But today I'm going to go ahead and follow this pattern. So I'm going to start with a smaller indigo, and then a larger, and then a smaller, and then one of the smaller blue zircon. And I'm going to continue this pattern several times. Okay, and so every so often, just look at the end and make sure that the pattern that you want is what's emerging. So we're doing really well right here. So I'm going to add another blue zircon. So I've reached the end of the small ones. I'm going to go ahead and add one of these larger indigo beads. One of the larger blue zircon. A couple of the smaller ones. Once I've reached the halfway point here, I'm going to go ahead and thread on the grow pendant. There we go. And then I'm just going to reverse the pattern. And I'll just check and make sure that everything's looking the way that I want it to look. Looks like the patterns match what I'd like. Oh, no, look. This bead is backwards. It's a really good idea to check throughout your piece, that way you don't have to do a lot of backtracking. Okay, let me check that again. Now it looks right. So I'm going to go ahead and just finish the pattern up here. Just a few more beads. Okay, then I'm going to set this aside for just a moment. I'm just going to double check before you crimp. Check your pattern every time. Kind of like the old measure twice, cut once. It looks really good. Okay. So now I'm going to slide on a crimp bead. And an AccuGuard. I've got some extra material, but that's okay. It's always better to have a little too much than to be short at the end. It gets really fiddly if you don't have enough. Okay, so I'm going to let that slide all the way down. And I want it to be fairly tight. I don't want a lot of space left there. So I'm going to take the outer edge of my crimper and just pull that AccuGuard together so it's touching itself in the center. And then pull out all the slack. So one of the better ways to do this is to get a hold of the AccuGuard and just pull, pull, pull. You want it nice and flush inside the AccuGuard. And some we're not using a crimp cover, so we don't need to leave extra space. If we're using a crimp cover, we'd want a little extra space, an extra millimeter in there. So I'm going to go ahead and crimp that closed. I'm going to take my flush cutter and cut that right up against the crimp. And so you have your completed pattern with 2 AccuGuards at the end. We're going to finish this up by adding some chain and a clasp. So I've got 2 pre-cut pieces of this great long short chain. They're 2 inches, and we'll grab a clasp here. And then we just need some jump rings. We're going to use these little silver jump rings, 4 of them. And so I've got my jump ring opener. I left it on because I knew I was going to need it again. And I'll grab my jump ring. So you want the little opening facing up. That's really important. And you just stick it in your jump ring opener and torque it open. And I'm going to put in the end of my chain, the AccuGuard, and then I'm going to put it back in the opener and close it up. And then I'm going to inspect it. Is it nice and tight? Is there a gap? If there's a little gap like you see here, I'm going to grab my little bent nose pliers and I'm just going to finesse it together so it's a nice tight fit. That'll keep your piece from coming apart. I'll do the same thing again. I'm going to grab one of these little jump rings, open it, thread on the end of the chain, thread on the AccuGuard, and then I'm going to close it up. You can do it this way too. The jump ring opener is handy. Sometimes when you're working with little jump rings here, the chain nose pliers are really good too. And that gave it a nice tight close. Okay, last thing we'll do is add the clasp. A couple more jump rings here. Put the chain on, and I can close it up. I'd like that to be a little tighter fit. There we go. Last jump ring. Open it up. Thread on the toggle and the chain. And then close it up really nice and tight. And now you have your completed necklace. You're all set in beautiful shades of blue to echo the Pantone color of the year, classic blue.